Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel or welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my April TBR. I would like to read 5 books in the month of April. I have not been doing that well this year so far. I have been reading about 1 to 2 books per month, but I have a good feeling about April. But before we go ahead and get on into the books, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. So for the 5 books that I'd like to read in the month of April, I'm currently actually already reading 3 of them, but I'm not really far into any of them. So the first one is Ruin by John Gwynne. This is book 3 in his Faithful and the Fallen Quartet, which is a traditional adult fantasy type story. I feel like at this point, this author in this book needs no introduction because he has definitely blown up in the last couple years in popularity. I am currently on page 62, I think chapter 9. I am listening to this on audiobook, at least as of right now. I might delve into physically reading this at some point, but I'm okay with just audiobooking at this point. I am struggling to get into this book, I'm not going to lie, but I struggled with Malice, I struggle with Valor. In fact, I actually put Valor down halfway through, waited about 2 years, and then picked it back up again from the beginning and reread it. This series, it's not that I don't like it, I just don't find it overly engaging and overly unique. So the thought of picking it up to me is just a little bit boring. I'm a little bit bored by it. This entire story is the embodiment of the hero's journey, which has been done a million times. So when I'm looking for something that's super new and fresh and exciting and original, like when I think of John Gwynne or Faithful and the Fallen, this definitely is not it. Not to mention it's incredibly dense. So that's why I struggle with picking this up, which is why I decided to go with the audio route. But if you're not familiar with this series, we are following a huge cast of characters. The main one being Corbin. Corbin is a young boy, and he is prophesied to be the bright star, which is going to rise up with this army to defeat the Black Sun. And they are both avatars of, think of like God and then think of the devil. And Corbin is supposed to be representing God or good. And they are supposed to duke it out in this giant war that involves demons and angels. So that is where we're at. And there's also giants thrown into the mix too. And there's also magical artifacts. So a lot going on, a lot of political machinations too. The next book that I am currently in the middle of, and I do not plan on finishing in the month of April, is Jesus is Risen by David Limbaugh. This is a nonfiction book, obviously. And the second David Limbaugh book that I read Jesus in the Old Testament, I don't know, a couple of years ago. But David Limbaugh is a lawyer. And his first book he ever wrote was about the authenticity of the New Testament and the evidence for the life and story of Jesus. And he went into it trying to discredit it and ended up coming to faith because of all the evidence he found, very similar to Lee Strobel's story in The Case for Christ. I have not read that book by him, Jesus on Trial, but I just know his backstory. So this book is all about, it follows the life of Paul in the book of Acts, mostly in the New Testament, and the establishment of the early churches all over Asia and North Africa and parts of, Greece and Rome. Greece and Italy. And he is going through the book of Acts and pulling the historical evidence for the events that happened, as well as the people that are discussed in the Bible. And he also goes through and explains different parts of the books of Acts, and what scripture says. So David Limbaugh, the only issue I have with him is that he is a lawyer and he writes very textbook-y. So this book is not super, super engaging prose-wise. It's very informative. The writing is very good, but it's very technical. So I find myself only being able to read a couple pages at a time just because it's a lot of information and it's pretty dense. So I'm currently on page 156. And the good thing about this book is that it's not as long as you think, because starting here in the book, these are all notes. These are all footnotes and bibliography information. So it's not as long as you think. So technically I'm about halfway through. If you look where my bookmark is, I'm about halfway through. So I am enjoying it. I am learning a ton. And I really want to continue reading David Limbaugh's book because he is so educated and so well researched. And like, he just puts his all into making sure that the information that he's communicating is accurate and, very, I guess, lacking of bias. So I really enjoy it. And I don't think I'm going to finish this book in the month of April, but it is one that I'm currently reading. Next is a book that I just started yesterday, and that is The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu. And this is the first book in a trilogy. It is an adult sci fi series, and it is translated from Mandarin. And I am currently on page 82. I also have the audiobook for this, and I have listened to a little bit of the audio when I've been just doing stuff around the house. Not a huge fan of the audiobook narrator, unfortunately. I don't know who it is, but it will help me kind of get through this book quicker, I'm thinking. But what's happened so far in this book is we have established a timeline in the 60s during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. We followed a couple of characters, and now I think we are at current day following a new set of characters. So right now, I think the author is mostly just establishing exposition still and introducing us to background and characters, which is fine because I think it's a pretty intricate book and an intricate series. So it's good to have all that background information. But from my understanding, in China, there have been some scientists that have made contact with aliens in some shape or fashion. That's all I know. But we are getting into a point in the book where they are like the academics in China and other parts of the world are starting to question the, I guess, authenticity or reality of the laws of nature, like physics, saying that physics doesn't actually exist. So we're delving into a lot of theory or scientific theory, and it's really interesting. So I'm like incredibly taken in by this book. I am so intrigued. And before I started reading, I went online and I read some reviews on Goodreads. I usually do that for new books and new authors. And a lot of people said that the characters were very, cardboard and that the prose wasn't that good. And yes, that is true. So when I went into this book, I wasn't expecting, okay, this is going to have amazing prose, which I usually find the case from translated works, and the characters are going to be a little bit two-dimensional, which is fine. So what I've mostly been focusing on is the plot and the ideas that the author is trying to communicate, because I think that is where the best part of this book is going to be, or the series is going to be. So, like I said, I am very intrigued so far, and I just want to keep reading to find out what happens. Next, I thought it would be a lot of fun to throw in a YA fantasy into the mix, so I think I'm going to pick up Foxglove by Adeline Grace. This is the next book in her Belladonna series, and I read that book last year, thoroughly enjoyed it. I do have a full review for it, so I'll leave that up in the cards for you guys. But this follows a girl that can see and interact with death, and she can actually ingest or take certain poisons up to a certain point and not die. So she's able to kind of like interact with the veil between life and death because of this ability of hers. So in the first book, we had this entire plot that was resolved, and this actually is a new plot, so it's more of a companion novel. But in this book, we're once again following Signa. However, she is investigating the death of this duke that happened at her uncle's or her family's like estate called Thorngrove. And she is now kind of like entered into a relationship with death itself, and he or it or whatever is going to help her with her investigation. But we're actually introduced to a new character as well in this book known as Fate. So we have Death and we have Fate, and Signa can interact with both of them. And Signa finds out that she actually has these new magical abilities that are related to Fate. I don't know what that is, but I'm super intrigued. So, like I said, I like Belladonna, so I'm excited to delve into this one. And I think there's a third book that is coming out in this series or might be out already. And I just want to say that I love the aesthetics of this book. I think the covers are so pretty, and they have really quite beautiful end pages as well. So, just a fun, pretty looking series to have. And then if we have time, I would love to get to Mark Lawrence's new series, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, his library trilogy, because the second book does come out in April. I got this book for Christmas, and anything that involves just magical libraries or libraries in general, I'm going to be interested in. I have read Mark Lawrence's Broken Empire trilogy. I absolutely loved it. I have reviews for those books, so I will link that playlist up in the cards if you're interested in checking it out. But I am very unclear with what this book is actually about, because the synopsis is very short and it really doesn't explain that much about the world or the plot, but it basically says that there's this boy that exists in this magical library, and then there's this girl that comes from this place that is just overrun with terror and nightmares, and then their lives somehow intertwine and they have to tackle or unravel or understand the secrets of the world that they live in. I don't know what that means. I don't know how that relates to a magical library. I don't know anything about these characters. So I'm just really excited to jump into this new Mark Lawrence series, and not really knowing much about the world or anything like that, to see if I enjoy it. Okay, you guys, that is it for my April TBR. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, or what you plan on reading in the month of April, and I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye.